business. We have item 1321, Greensville County Public Schools.
Yes, and Mr. Dr. Phil Worrell is here to review the proposed FY14 school budget. Welcome, Dr. Worrell.
Good evening. Thank you for seeing me early and hopefully getting to the school budget early so that we can get contracts out and make some tough decisions, which I'm sure we're going to have to make. I passed out a copy of a PowerPoint, which I will kind of use as a guideline as I go through tonight. On second slide you will see in there is from the March school board meeting, and these are the changes in the budget for the coming year. You will see that for this current year that we had $16,398,000 in budgeted, and that's with an ADM of 2469. That's in state money. So what we have experienced over the last couple of years and continued in this year is a decline in students in ADM. We just completed the numbers for this year, and we've lost 61 students, and we're projecting at that rate to try and give a conservative estimate for next year. If you look at the projections in state money for next year, you will see that it's $16,117,000 for the two localities. Part of that is money dedicated for a 2% salary increase for all employees. So when you take that out of the appropriations from the state this year for operations in other areas, you see an appropriation of $15,923,000. And this is a decrease of $474,574. With an ADM increase that we're projecting for next year would be 88. We're projecting to possibly lose, but not at the same rate that we have been doing. And that's just to maintain current level of services. That's nothing new. That's just the money that we have this year. Going forward with the differences in state money, that we're already almost $500,000 in the red. You should be aware that this is the last year that we had escrow money or to cover the debt service for the Wyatt project, the latest construction project, and that money will not be available, so debt service is going up by $267,000 next year. We had a carryover of $108,000 in federal jobs bill money that we used to patch a hole in the current year's budget. So just to maintain the current level of services that we have this year with the debt service and the number of teachers and programs and everything we have, we're looking at a deficit of $850,000. You will see at the bottom of that page the cost of a 2% raise. The cost of a 2% raise is $348,000. The state provides $193,000, and that leaves a cost to the locality to do a 2% raise is $154,000. As you are aware, the state does only funds the SOQ position based on the composite index. So when they talk about a raise, they are not talking about the total cost. They're talking about the state share. On the next slide, you will see we have added a few additional items. The first of these are related to security in the buildings. Having worked closely with Sheriff Edwards this year to review what's going on in the schools and what's in the buildings, we are requesting 2 additional school resource officers, 1 for each of the elementary schools. We currently have a resource officer at the middle school and 1 at the high school. We're also looking at making facility changes in the buildings to enhance security, to secure the buildings so that you cannot just enter the building without being buzzed in, and adding some cameras in different places. And that's estimated to cost $110,000. Now, since we have put this budget together, we have learned that there is going to be a state grant. I just recently learned that the grants will not be given out until August of this year, or the deadline to apply for them. And we can get up to $100,000 in a grant with localities providing $25,000. You get $75,000 from the state, and locality matches of $25,000. So that could be an additional $75,000 that we might have that is not included in the budget. We have discovered with the enrollment bubbles going through that we need 2 additional math teachers at Wyatt, 1 for 7th grade, 1 for 8th grade, so we have added those to the budget. The phone bill, this also may be a change now from, I haven't really discussed it before. Our E-rate was going to go up, but we provided some additional numbers, so that may not go up as much as the $15,000. It might be a smaller increase. Health insurance went up 2.2%. We have absorbed the increase in that. We have just factored on the same percentage we're paying this year and passed it on to the employees will pick up a small increase, and the $37,000 for the division, we have absorbed that in the budget. We did not increase our money for that. We discovered we were running short. We probably cut too much out of personnel this year. We also had to add a couple of special education aides that were not budgeted. These are one-on-one aides that we did not plan, so we have gone back and just added $8,000 also into the personnel budget and instruction. So that's an additional $390,000. So when you add all of those up, you come up with about $1.4 million of additional money that we are requested, the school board has requested. And again, that would be minus the $75,000. And this also does not take into account the effects of sequestration. We're probably going to 5 to 7% decrease in some of our programs that basically are funding staff. So we have not factored that into anything yet. We would have to make those adjustments also. If you look at the bottom of page 2 in the slide, this could get a little confusing, but basically the yellow highlighted area is going to be compare the money that we are requesting to what we received in 2008-2009. And that was a high point of school budgets. If you look under the 2008-2009, you will see we had in local funds $7,147,155. If you look over under 13-14, we're asking for $6,020,000. And what is interesting, with this $1.4 million that we are requesting, that is only $186,000 more that the localities would fund for schools than what you funded in 2008-2009. Well, for operations, it looks like it's a lot of money for operations, but it's not a big amount there. Some of the reason is because the debt service has gone up. When we lost the state money, you can see that up there in red, we've lost $2.8 million in state money since 2008-2009. Part of that money was $500,000 was going towards debt service that we have eaten. The school division has absorbed that money for debt service out of our operations budget. We did not, during the tight budget times, we did not come back to the localities and ask you to give us the extra $500,000. We made the cuts in our operating budgets to pick up the debt service for that. If you look at the blue, that just compares it just for purposes with the $1.4 million. We're only $600,000. We're still $600,000 less than what we had for operations in 06-07. So the school division is operating on significantly less money than they have operated before the recession hit. So we have eaten all these cuts and we have absorbed them. If you look at the bottom of that, you'll see money returned each year, and this is based on from the audit. You can see over those 4 years, we returned $725,000. And those of you who have been on council for a while will know that just about every one of those years we've asked that money be appropriated to the escrow funds to help with future debt services, and the governing bodies have chosen not to do that. So since 08-09, we have seen a decline of enrollment of 5.7%. So I guess, in summary, I want to say it looks like we're asking for a lot of money, but when you look at what we've had over the years, it's not really much of an increase compared to what we had in past years. The next few slides are just a review of items that you've seen before. These are the cuts that we've made over the last several years to see where those cuts came from. You can see we've cut about 9.5% of our teachers. We cut 13.5% of aides. Now, we've actually cut more in elective positions because we've had to add numerous special education aides where students require one-on-one assistance. So this is the net loss, but we have cut other positions in order to absorb some of the special education positions. We've cut 21% of our administrative staff. The professional support has gone up by one. The General Assembly passed a law a couple of years ago that all the money in basic aid for nurses had to be spent on nurses. We had always been able to cover the schools because we don't have as many schools without spending all the money that we were allocated. So we had to hire a nurse for every school. So they did change that this year in the budget process. And then we have cut classified support by 36%, which that does include the reduction of custodians that have been outsourced to a private agency that saved us over $100,000. The next page, you will just see other items that we've cut, extended contracts. I'm not going to bother reading all those, but you can see that's $154,000. At the bottom, you'll see non-personnel cuts. One of the areas we probably cut too much because we are struggling in this every year is the $240,000 for textbooks and instructional supplies. We haven't really purchased any textbooks since this process started of reducing our expenditures, so we do run very tight in that. The next slide basically just reiterates what I said about the debt service, that if we put that money aside every year, it would have been enough to cover the debt service and could have covered future years' debt service probably also. But the most important thing I think I've got to say is this last slide here, and that's the effects of the budget cuts on student achievement. We've made significant gains in student achievement since I arrived here in 1989 with Dr. Shannon. In the last few years, a couple of years ago, what we'd like to look at are our disadvantaged scores, because we have a large number of disadvantaged students. And they depress your overall student scores because generally they do not score as high as students who come from backgrounds where they receive all the enrichment that they need. But our kids have been successful. When you look at how our disadvantaged students, economically disadvantaged students, have done compared to the state, 2 years ago, 75% of our SOL scores were at or above the state average. So we're doing better, generally, than the state is with a similar type of student. This past year, that percentage dropped to 63%. And I don't want to make a guess on what's going to happen with this year's scores. So we are feeling the effect of these cuts. And even the administrative cuts. We get a lot of teachers who we hire don't have a lot of experience, and many of them come from a non-traditional background. They were not education majors. And we've been able to find people who care about children, and they become successful, but it's taken support from our office, and we really have not had the support to give them that we had in the early years that led to all of those gains. So we are concerned that if we do not increase funding, that achievement is going to return to the level where it was from 1989, which is interesting. These last two slides is the most recent information just came out a couple of weeks ago since I presented this to the county. And what you have here are per pupil cost for the surrounding counties, and when I started, the counties that were in Region Superintendent Study Group 8, which is the one that Greensville County belongs to. 1995 is the base year. That's the year I became superintendent. And 2009 is the year which I was compared to where our money was at that time, compared to what we're asking for this year. And then 2012 is the most recent year. And you can see as far as the local per pupil cost, we've gone from the fifth highest to the lowest of these groups here. And some of these are going to be projected based on composite index, so the wealthy divisions would pay more than the poorer divisions, but some of these divisions are comparable to us. And of course, we were no richer in 1995 than we are today, or no poorer either, so our standing there has changed. I think perhaps two of the most interesting is the second one's down there, and you will see sorting by the total cost per school division. You'll see that Greensville County last year averaged $9,462 per student, which is $1,500 below the state average. And I think that's significant. I think that you have gotten a lot for your money that you've been giving to education over the last few years. I think we've taken it. I think the schools have buckled down and worked harder with fewer resources. If you look at the next slide, when you take the federal money out, we're $1,900 less than the state average. So when you look at the state average, we kind of lost some standing there, and I think that's because we don't have it. You get more schools you have, the more money you get, and I think the difference there is because we've closed some schools and had some cost savings there too. But we are very concerned that we will be able to sustain the achievements we've made over the last few years without a significant increase in local dollars towards education. I mean, the $267,000 is debt service. That's been known for a long time. So we basically need as much money as you can provide us. I don't think we'll get to $1.4 million, but we're looking at significant cuts. There's not much left that we can cut in our budget. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
The description of the composite index is probably as good as any short summary of it you're going to hear. Wealthy divisions pay more.
Right.
That's of the total costs, local and state. Probably the one thing that you and I would agree on in this conversation is that the state is shifting increasingly costs that they should be paying for in the calculation of SOQ figures to the localities and not doing what would be ideal in either of our
right.
worldview of things. If there is, and I don't believe this or accept this, if there is a direct correlation between school spending and student achievement or academic performance, if one looks at total expenditures and not simply local expenditures, we're spending more per student than Chesterfield, Dinwiddie, Hanover, Henrico, or Spotsylvania. Those are all school systems that I think most folks would look upon as pretty well performing. We're spending about $4,000, $4,500 a year less than Richmond schools are spending per student. And I don't think there's anyone who wouldn't make a strong argument that we are doing so much better than Richmond schools that it's not funny. So I think it's difficult to make a direct correlation like that. I understand your point. Yes, to do what you're suggesting, and I realize there's no magic bottom line figure that you would gratefully and well spend any amount that the local governments could fund. And then the finance director or treasurer can correct me if I'm wrong, but from a quick and dirty calculation, that would look like we would need to come up with, for our share, another $635,000, or the equivalent of 17.2 cents on our real estate tax. And I don't think there's some awful strong trees and ropes out there that folks could probably find if we dared to go that far in doing it. So I understand your point, but I also understand realistically that you realize that the tough budget years have not ended for us, for any locality, and that we're limited in what we reasonably have the ability to do too. But I don't want any of that to undercut the outstanding job I think you're doing, the teachers are doing, the work that's being done. I'd like to see better job on part of some of the parents in supporting the teachers, but I don't think there's a line item in your budget anywhere that would really adequately address that. Y'all are in an unenviable situation and needing more support and grounding from parents in the home. And it's, when you look at the world today, it's remarkable that things go as well as they do. But I think you have done not only more with less, but a good job with whatever you've had throughout the time, really, that you've been here. Thank you.
Just thank you for the compliments there, and our goal is to continue what we've achieved, and our concern is that we're slipping. and that's hard on staff. When success has been that the students are learning and our efforts are paying off, but when we haven't been able to do the resources. Just to comment, as far as comparing to those other divisions, one of the things when you compare to larger divisions, it's not a fair comparison because of economies of scale. Because they have, even though they're spending less per pupil, the amount of resources that they throw at their children that are similar to ours is just unbelievable compared to what we have to offer. So with the economies of scale, they're able to do a lot more with less money on a per pupil basis, so that helps out. Plus, their populations of most of those divisions are probably not as needy as ours are. Our kids can learn, and small classes is critical. We've proven that our kids can learn with support. And one of what you find out is not all parents in poverty, or there are a lot of parents in poverty that do everything they can and are there and providing the role model for their children, but there are some that aren't, and there are more that aren't. So it's not a description of what the parents are like. It's a numbers game, and so from that perspective, again, we are feeling we are at the wit's end here, and there are no easy cuts. I know that the city and county, we've had conversations, and where I'm having a hard time getting to the number that's been discussed. So anything less than that would be extremely difficult.
What number's been discussed?
I think from what I've read in the paper, the county has offered their share of an additional $200,000 on top of the $267 for debt service. They've offered their share of an addition. Their $200,000 with the city matching, that would be their share of additional $200,000 in county funds, which would be about an additional $180 from the city, in addition to their share of this $267. But that's going to create a hardship just to get to that point for us. So
it's a little higher than what I had in mind. One person's view.
So.
I don't disagree with the substance of anything you've said.
But this is
comment, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics.
And this is not directed at you, but and not only this community, but every community seems to. Things go up in the budget, but it seems to be the schools that are the last thing to go in, and that's kind of for the tax increase is often placed on the schools. And it's not been a problem because this community, when we have got it, has been very supportive. It hadn't been an issue, but I don't know how this year is going to play out. So I do want to at least put in a plug that ours is not the only thing necessarily. I don't look at y'all's budgets. I don't know what's going on but it's not just schools that are going up in the budget. So.
An idea how many people are going to retire this year?
Right now we have not very many. If we have to cut positions right now, if we do have to cut positions, I'm having a hard time doing it through attrition. So with the money that we're talking about. So and I really have not put anything out there, have not talked to anyone because our hope is that we don't have to do anything in those areas. But I think we've had 3 or 4 people retire off the top of my head.
I think y'all do an outstanding job. Considering the funding that we have and the limited resources that we have, and the fact that we have so many high-risk students. A lot of people don't understand that we have so many high-risk students in this area, but we do. And to get the schools accredited, I think was a real benchmark.
No. We're hoping they stay that way. But.
I know.
I have a question. Did I hear you say that you had non-educational majors?
Oh yes, we a significant number of our teachers that we hire. The elementary school generally not above grade 5. The Grenz Elementary School we get all education majors, but when you get above grade 5, there's a large percentage of teachers,
They're
especially.
not Teach for America.
No, Virginia isn't. Virginia just recently voted to participate in that, so you will see Teach for America, but they generally go into the urban areas rather than small rural areas, I believe.
They have some in North Carolina.
Okay, well, I could be right. Anyway, Virginia they weren't able to teach in Virginia because they didn't meet the licensing requirement. But Governor McDonald did put in a bill to allow Virginia to participate with Teach for America, and Virginia will be doing that next year.
Have the license. the licensure.
They give a special. They have a special licensing. They meet the highly qualified. They have to have the content areas. They don't have to have the education courses.
So, do you think those non-educational majors, do they have degrees?
Yes. Oh, they all have degrees. They're generally content majors or people who are doing other things and want to decide they want to become teachers is a second. They didn't plan on being teachers, but they care about children, and we have a very good induction program. We bring all the teachers in and train them, and we provide support all during the year for first-year teachers. And this is all to participate, but it's a lot of programs designed that give more of the ideas and lessons they would have gotten in their education courses that they haven't had. Now, they have to take the courses while they're teaching to get licensed.
So you don't require them to be involved in a non-lateral, like a lateral educational program?
If we can get them that way, but we it's sometimes at the higher levels, like if it's a history teacher, we'll find a history major teach a history class who hasn't had any education courses. And that's generally what you get, someone who's majored in a subject and didn't plan on being a K-12 teacher, and then you have to teach them how to teach.
I'd like to say thank
Thank
you,
you.
and I'd like to concur with everyone else on the great job that the school system is doing with the increased rigor of the SOLs and the limited resources you have in attracting those quality teachers that those bigger school divisions have. We still have done a great job here in Greensboro.
Thank you. We've got some great dedicated people, and they make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes